Welcome everyone to the Sirens Sound Off, where I, Philip,
And I, Dwayne.
discuss our impressions of the latest story to appear on television. And so today we're going to be discussing The Church on Ruby Road, written by Russell T Davies and directed by Mark Tonderay, who had previously done The Ghost Monument and Rosa. And of course, starring Ncuti Gatwa in his first complete episode and introducing Millie Gibson as the new companion Ruby Sunday. And also, always, we're going to just kick off by giving an initial impression and feeling. So I'm going to kick off because I really loved the episode. I thought it was a lot of fun. Was it really complex and deep? Not really. But was I engaged the whole time and loving moments of it? I really was. So I'm a thumbs up for this. Dwayne, what about your initial impression?
My initial impression is that I'm not a huge fan of the Christmas episodes to introduce a doctor. I was never a huge fan of the Christmas invasion to start with, but I found myself being more of an interested observer rather than a fan of this. I was sort of clenching with white knuckles as to see where it would go, and yeah, I didn't have an overly positive feeling by the end of it.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. We're gonna break it down a bit and find out those feelings, and that's fine. We come to things differently. I know I have very much approached the whole new season, um, wanting to be, wanting to enjoy as much as possible, wanting to not gloss over the negatives, but not make too much of them. And I know that you were very desiring of doing that as well initially, but there are a number of things, both with this, and I think you would also admit modern television. There's certain elements that are happening at the moment that aren't particularly to your flavor. Would that be fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say.
Good. Okay. Well, let's break down and just work out what are the things we can agree with and what are the things that we have some issues with. How about we just start with the 15th Doctor? So, what's your impression of Ncuti now? We had 15 minutes, but this is his first episode. What do you think of the way the Doctor's shaping up in this episode?
Yeah, I didn't get a sense of the strength of the character that I got in the previous episode. So this might be his this is not really his introductory episode, is it? Because that was the last one. Was that right? Was that how you would view it? Um, so I don't really connect with Ncuti as the Doctor. Um, I don't really know how to put it. I maybe I'm just getting old, Philip, and I'm not connecting with the Doctor the way I used to. It's what all the youngins and the young at hearts want, but yeah, not not really for me. Although
Okay.
I do like his outfit. His outfit's very good.
Yeah, his costumes are wonderful. I guess I would want to say in terms of what I've found so far is in terms of what I'm really enjoying about the 15th Doctor is his confidence. That he just what they were trying to show in this episode, I think regularly, was just his love of life, his confidence in the world, his ability to let go of the past. I think we've been dealing with doctors for years now, 15 years, who have been surviving, guilt survival. They've been doctors who, the survival guilt, that ask the question, "Am I a good man?" and ponder a whole season pondering how good I am. We've been all these doctors trying to understand life who've struggled with personal, the previous doctor, or two previous doctors ago with Jodie, struggling with personal connection, how to communicate with people who, companions are terrified of dying of cancer and they just don't care. Um, we've had doctors who've been so removed, and I think, and just pondering who they are, understanding themselves, trying to find their backstory. In Ncuti so far, what we're seeing is a doctor who's let all that go, and I guess it was introduced in the last special where the 14th Doctor was going to go away and look after himself and heal himself and deal with all the past traumas that had happened, and now we have a Doctor who's trauma free. And so, that scene on the dance floor where he's spinning around, carefree, enjoying life, but immediately able to be there for someone else as well. So what I'm looking forward to seeing this Doctor is a
So
Doctor.
is that where
Hmm,
it was crying?
yeah,
Was that him empathizing more than feeling sorry for himself? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I don't think he was feeling sorry for himself at all. He was realizing that time had changed, and his connection he had made with someone was gone because she'd been taken out of time. And so, yeah, that emotion of and it wasn't just short lived, because it was interesting because because at the very opening, so the cold open, he steps out of the TARDIS and he's already in tears, out of the TARDIS. So that's the last of the whole trip. So yeah, I think this is a Doctor who's passionate, who wants to form relationships, and when loses relationships, that's going to cause issues for him. So it's no one dies in this episode, which is a rare thing. Well, sorry, except for goblins, but there's no death of any human being. It's actually it's a death-free episode, which is such a rare thing. Stephen Moffat used to do it all the time by tweaking things and making things up. Though I guess there's a bit of that happening here too, but it's very much it's an episode where the Doctor is about making things better, saving lives, and once he realizes it's been a disaster, he fixes it. So, we're seeing a Doctor again who's able to fix things, who wants to fix things, and he feels things deeply. So I'm actually excited with where this Doctor could go.
Yeah, just jumping on the dance scene, he did remind me of that. I was thinking of past Doctors who may have let go to that extent, and the 11th Doctor certainly did that a couple of times. I remember the 11th Doctor playing soccer and dancing at the Pond's wedding and things like that. So even the Ninth Doctor had a bit of a dance
Yeah,
in the TARDIS there, and would have let go from time to time. So it's not unique to to this Doctor that he's going to let go and have a bit of fun from time to time. So that didn't strike me as overly unusual for the
I think what they're
Doctor.
trying. I think what they're
But
trying to
I
show
also
is,
hear what you're saying. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. As I said, I think it's just emphasized that this is a Doctor who's healed, and I said that, all that trauma we've had. I mean, the 11th Doctor on the dance floor was hilarious at the Bond's wedding, but he was just a big geek. I mean, he was a big kid dancing with the kids. Susie's more of an adult. I mean, much more of an adult than in some ways than the 11th Doctor was. He's grown up. He's enjoying life. He's on the dance floor. Yeah, I think it was just trying to show that total freedom. It was actually an interesting scene because the whole way it was filmed and even the colorization of that scene didn't feel very Doctor Who. It was a very adult drama. It was much more like what one of Russell T Davies, It's a Scene, or one of his more adult drama shows at that moment because the whole colorization and filming technique. Though it did flip backwards and forwards, I think, to other
Hmm.
things that was more traditional with the filming. Anything else you want to say about the 15th Doctor at the moment?
Okay.
Or what about Ruby Sunday? What do you think of Millie Gibson's performance?
Well, for me personally, she was the standout, and I think that was probably because of my interest in her story. Because I'm an adopted person myself, so I thought I knew that they were going to deal with this issue of adoption, finding out where you came from, all that kind of thing. So I was very interested to see how they would handle that. I know it was something that Chris Chibnall was interested in doing, and that was how the whole timeless child thing came about, but it wasn't handled very well. So I was interested to see how it would be done here. Um, and just I could really empathize with her when the results came back and there was no trace of her parents. So I know there's probably more to the story, but I'm looking at it from a very personal level
Hmm.
when I'm looking at Millie Gibson. So I guess from that standpoint, I wasn't looking at the overall story so much as her experience, and
Hmm.
I connected with that more than anything else in the story.
Hmm. I know you've searched out your parents and found your birth parents. That
Mm,
wouldn't be done
yeah.
through DNA though? Is it actually realistic that you could give a DNA sample and find people? Do you think is that realistic?
I I think it is these days because
Okay.
the DNA samples that you give to ancestry.com, they can come up with things. And if the other person has gone into that pool as well with their DNA, then it could come back quite
Hmm.
easily.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not an area that I understand at all. Yeah, I think there's so much yet which is still to explore with her. There's the mystery of her mother. Who is her mother? Is that going to be significant or not? I've actually watched it through twice. So the first time I actually didn't actually know who the mother was, but listening to the narration again the second time, the narration at the beginning for the cold open says no one ever knew her name until the night, until a time traveler arrived. And so the actual narration at the beginning suggests that the Doctor does learn her name. And so even though we see the Doctor watch her walking away and then turn around and step into the TARDIS, I do wonder whether we're missing a scene in there where he does actually chase her down and talk to her and find out who she is. I
Mm.
don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like it's possible the Doctor does know who the mother is and will discover later.
Yeah.
It,
Interesting.
yeah,
Because that scene where he walks out of the TARDIS and sees her walking down the street, um, every bone in my body was going, go down and turn around, find out who she is, because that is exactly what I would want to know. And so I was quite, and I think it's the natural thing to do that. So I thought it was a bit unnatural, that scene, but I wasn't thinking about the overall story. There's got to be something coming. Mavity's back in there, so there's something
Yeah.
happening
Mm.
that is a much bigger picture than I was looking at in that moment. So um, yeah, if there was a chance to find out who the mother was, you'd absolutely grab it.
Mm. And I suspect that's happened. I think he's talked to her, and I think they've just cut that scene out, and we'll see it inserted later. A bit like was the Angels with Matt Smith's first season, where there was that scene where they went back to where he has a conversation
Ah,
with
yes,
Amy
yeah,
when she's got her
I know
eyes
what
shut,
you mean.
and you go because
Yep.
there was that whole scene there, and I went, oh, that's a continuity error when they first played it, and then later on, no, it wasn't a continuity error; it was actually part of the plot. So I do suspect that. I am hoping that there's nothing too much about Ruby. I really do not want another girl who's going to save the universe, another, the girl who's forgotten, another, what we've had in the past,
Ends up dying and
especially,
getting brought back, and
yes, I don't want that. I want Amy to be a companion. Sorry,
yep.
not Amy. I want Ruby to be a companion in the old-fashioned way, human being, normal, not going to save the universe because of some mysterious whatever. So I'm hoping it won't be too overblown because most of Russell's links over seasons have been very nothing much, and often when the first one, the Bad Wolf, happened by accident, he didn't even realize it was happening until and then started writing it in. So I don't want these really tight arcs, and I don't want her to be a person who's going to save the universe. But I'm curious about her, and Millie's performance I really enjoyed because she's been on Coronation
Mm.
Street since she was quite young. I think she was about 14 or something when she joined Coronation Street and did 4 or 5 years, so she's able to give it an in-depth performance, and certainly I'm looking forward to that.
I really loved her family too. It was such a
Yeah,
nice, different family dynamic, that foster family.
yep.
Really loved it. It was pretty powerful, those scenes where the timeline was changed. I thought that the foster mother, can't remember her name, but
Tyler,
she
played
did
by
a great
Michelle
performance. I love the
Greenwich,
Yeah, and I love the grandmother too. So yeah,
Cherry
hopefully
Sunday.
we'll see some more of them.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
Cherry Sunday sounds like a. I mean it's interesting. I mean Ruby Sunday sounds like a song, and Cherry Sunday sounds like a dessert. So I mean having a name like Sunday has effects. Yeah, I mean I think this. I thought Cherry Sunday, the grandmother, she was just so funny, and she was a lovely link throughout. She's actually not that old, which is interesting. She's only, I think she's about 65. So I think she's only 11 years older than the actress playing Carla. So she was 11 when she had her. But yeah, once again, with acting, you don't need to be the exact age. It's okay. But she's certainly playing it over. But she's had a very long time in the East End as the grandmother. And as a Carla Sunday, played by Michelle Greenwich, she's part of Russell T Davis's troupe of players because she was in It's a Sin. So yeah, I think I've mentioned before, Russell T really likes playing with his actors and putting them in several of his things. We often see actors reappear across different shows, and that's another one for It's a Sin brought in. I think the thing that did strike me was when time changed, what a sad, bitter person she was. She was obviously still the same character, but having not had a daughter in her life for 18 years, she had turned colder. And it was very
Yes.
subtly written. It was very subtly played, but it was just it makes you
Really affected
ponder.
me though. It
Yeah,
was really stark.
it really makes you ponder how much the people in our lives affect who we are. And by just taking a person out of your life, where would you have ended up and where would you be different? So and we yeah, so it was a really beautifully done scene, I thought, where you just take out one person and you just and in a couple of scenes, which you could say, well, those domestic scenes were ponderous, but it's just what Russell T Davis writes. He writes those kitchen scenes with extended families so well, and it's lovely to see once again. We had Rose with her mother, we had Freema with her family and all the divorce, we had Donna with her mum and grandfather, and so once again we're getting this extended family who I hope we see regularly. I guess we don't know
Yep.
yet how much we'll see them because all that stuff's been. I mean, it's interesting that Russell's told us so much and he's told us so nothing. So whereas Chris Chibnall gave us nothing at all, so you never had any idea at all, we keep feeling like we've been given stuff, but when you start to discuss it, you go, actually, we don't know. Like we've been given nothing at all. So yeah, her extended family, love them. Um, Actually, well, while we just talk about the last bits of cast members, why don't we just mention um, the Davina McCall? Now, I did a bit of research on Davina McCall when she came up because I knew she was playing herself. Do you know anything about Davina McCall before you saw it today?
Not really. It's not. She didn't do The Weakest Link, did she? Years and years ago.
She's famous for Big Brother.
Big Brother.
So yeah, so Davina, I did a bit of research, and because all our listeners in the UK, you would know this already. She's one of BBC's big presenters. So she did Big Brother. She's done many other shows, but one of the shows she does is a show called Long Lost Family, which is actually a show like Where Did You Come From for people in Australia. I think that might be Australia.
Australia's Who Do You Think You Are, isn't it?
Who do you think you are? Which I think there might be a UK version of that too. But Long Lost Family, it's one of the things she looks for people who are looking for family members, looking for parents. And so she was very much playing herself and playing the job she does in that show. So what did you think of Davina in the show and the role she played?
Oh, she was great. I knew what they were doing. I could see um I could see what she was doing. It was a bit of a shock when she got
Killed.
killed there at one point, but then
Yeah.
of course, that was reversed at the end.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't really reversed, was it? There was just
It
something
just
there
didn't
we didn't
happen.
see.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, that to
so
me was a
yeah,
real
that
shock.
was
I mean,
interesting.
yeah, I love the direction where she has this conversation on the phone, and then slowly the camera pulls out, and you see the sling, and then you see the broken leg, and you realize this poor person for the
Yeah.
last 3 weeks has been going through the wars, and the doctor lady says, oh, they're just having fun with her. Like it's not that they have any intentions with her. It's just that the goblins are just rotten and just causing her pain. And as you saw, they were going to kill her. And to me that was a real shock because having just done a bit of research and knowing she was a real person, Davina McCall playing Davina McCall, how do you kill off a real person on a TV show if they're playing themselves? And so having such a big role in about to
Mm.
kill her, I was really shocked by that. And then of course it's interesting because of course by the end of the show I'd sort of forgotten it happened. And so when the doctor suddenly reappears and saves her life, you go, oh, I'd forgotten that it happened. So it was a lovely reversal. Goblins. What do you think about goblins, Dwayne?
Um, it was an interesting concept. Still don't quite. I've only seen it once, and I saw it the long time before we're recording now. So, what are they from a kind of a sideways dimension? Are they that's got a whole different sort of physics about them, and they
Well,
can
that's
only
that.
come into the world in certain circumstances?
Well, that's
Is
the
that it?
that's the whole thing. We're going into fantasy. So Doctor Who is always mainly the monsters have been aliens, other races. We are since the specials, we've started moving into. I guess the Meep was just an alien, but whatever was on the external edges of the galaxy from another universe coming in was more mysterious and more strange. And then we have the toy maker, who's from a different realm and a fantasy realm. We've now gone into goblins, who once again are fantasy. They're not science fiction creatures. They weren't an alien race. These are fantasy creatures. And Doctor Who hasn't often gone down the fantasy line. And so it's interesting that we're now going into the realm of away from science fiction, which I guess, yeah, Simon, anyhow, but away from that realm of Cybermen, alien monsters and things, and we're moving to the realm of fantasy creatures. We have had them before,
Is the
kind
land
of.
of fiction breaking through into our universe?
I don't know, and the whole,
That's too sci-fi.
celestial toy room. How much is the toy maker's influence having an impact? So yeah, but in terms of characterizations, did you enjoy them?
Yeah, I thought they were fine. They were well done. I thought there might be some more interaction between the main cast and them, and maybe even the Goblin King. But the Goblin King didn't say
Didn't
anything, did
speak.
he? So
No.
no.
Okay, so
So,
the
but
song. What do you
I
think? Come
mean,
on.
the only thing we got was the song. So I know you would
And
have
what do you
loved
think?
it,
I
and
did adore it.
it's a Christmassy thing. So you know that's that's what it's there for. That's probably the only day they could put something like that in a Doctor Who episode. Although I think there's a musical episode coming up, which you're going to love even more, I'm sure.
There's been
But
gossip about that, and having now heard Ncuti and Millie sing, I'm thinking, oh, we can do it. And they both move so well, the way they danced. I mean, it was once again that was such a lovely surprise because I've watched lots of times the preview of the Goblin song. I've downloaded on iPlayer, and so I
and
love
then
the
they
Goblin
pop into
song.
song, yeah.
And yeah, and then when they started singing, totally unexpected, and he sings so well, she sings so well, the way he moves. Oh, I was just in hysterics. It was wonderful. I mean, just those 3 minutes for me is part of the reason why I love this episode so much. So love how they can
Well,
sing. I do hope.
if anyone's going to know if it's good, it's going to be you. So I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, but did you enjoy it, or you just thought, not for you? What was your feeling of the song?
Um, oh, the song itself,
Mm.
I thought it was cleverly rhymed. It was, I think I mean, it fed into the story. See what I did there? Fed into the story. Um, and I think it worked fine. So that was the only speech we heard from the goblins, wasn't it? Was the singing
Yeah,
from that lady goblin. Yeah. So, but no, for because of the day because it's a Christmas special, you just go, well, that's the kind of thing they're going to put in. So
yeah,
that
easygoing
didn't bother me at all.
for the whole audience.
Hmm. It was just a
There's
bit of
lot,
fun, I guess.
yeah, and there's lots of new play in terms of learning the language of rope, and and learning about luck and
Yeah, I thought that
coincidence.
was interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that was. What do you think about all that sort of stuff they were putting in?
Yeah, it was good. It was good that I just didn't say, well, there's the goblins, because he did make the comment that they have a whole new way of physics, and he was learning how to do it, even though the whole, you know, um, what do you call it? Techno babble of it all went over my head. I knew what was going on and I knew what he was trying to do. So I thought that was interesting, and I like the way that's addressed and not just presented to us and said,
Mm.
there you go, accept that. There was a bit more substance behind it.
I thought really played well, both his acting and the direction, in terms of he was learning the language of rope, and just the fact that the Doctor is clever enough, in about 25 seconds, and Millie's trying to get out. We've got to get out of here. Trying to kick down the door. He's just what his eyes were darting around, looking at all the ropes, working them out. A few things, bang, open the door, and just once again, I think we often forget how clever the Doctor is. And sometimes, with the sonic screwdrivers is doing magic. Here it was actually him thinking through, coming to understand how this whole technology of ropes work. And then for the rest of the episode, he kept playing on that technology that he learnt in terms of master ropes and different ropes for things. And it's sort of, it's a whole technology using ropes, and just you could really play around with that in the future. I don't know whether we'll ever see the goblins back again. And I think, as I said before, part of the fantasy element was, the end of the goblins was when he manages to use a church as a weapon, which is amusing on Christmas Day. But the church spire to actually, he staked the Goblin King, very vampirish. But the consequence of that was they all just vanished. It was a bit like a Buffy the Vampire staking. When you stake a vampire, they turn to dust.
Yeah,
It,
they sort of dissolved from reality, didn't they?
yeah, because once again, we're fantasy, we're not science fiction. So I do wonder whether people are going to get upset about the fact that Doctor Who's moving away from science fiction roots. There was no bomb, there was no explosions, nothing like that. There was no, unit sending out a ray. It was simply staking the baddie through the heart, and everything just therefore disintegrated and disappeared. Which, as I said, it's fantasy. It's not science fiction. So we'll see whether that's something that causes people stress. Um, Now, a lovely little twist along the way was Mrs. Flood. Now, when I saw Mrs. Flood, Anita Dobson, I really recognized her. So I sort of looked up because I was trying to how do I recognize her? Most people would actually know her most famously from EastEnders. She played a main character, Angie Watts, for the first 4 years. And when EastEnders first started, I actually watched it because I used to like my soap operas. So I think it was about 1985 for the first 4 years. And in fact, I think it might be the largest rating program ever, certainly the largest rating soap episode ever, was when her husband, Dirty Dan Watts, who was played by a Doctor Who actor, can't think of his name, then Dirty Den. He was in Resurrection of the Daleks. Um,
Yep.
Anyhow, he was a baddie in that. And Louise Jameson actually met him in prison and gave him acting lessons. And then when he got out, she helped him get some acting work. He ended up in EastEnders with a major role. But the biggest rating soap opera episode ever was when she got handed divorce papers by Dirty Den. So more than 30 million people watched that one episode, which is just astounding when you think about television today. That 30 million people in the UK would be tuned to one episode. And she's had a big career on stage in that. So she was a big, big name playing a very small part, I thought. What was your impressions of Mrs. Flood, and who do you think she is?
Well, on first viewing, which is the only viewing I've had, I've not really paid much attention. But then I jumped online and I saw all these questions. Who is Mrs. Flood? I thought, oh, yeah, there probably is something there. The way she was, talking about the TARDIS like she'd seen it before, and you know, the breaking the fourth wall was fine. That didn't really ring any alarm bells in me. But there could be something. Is she the one that picked up the tooth of the toy maker? Is she somebody else? Who knows? Who knows? Some
Mm.
people say that Flood is like another iteration of River Song. So
Song and
who
Pond.
knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I do wonder
Yeah.
whether water stuff's for that reason. Yeah. The fact that she knew the name of a TARDIS means, hang on, who is she? The thing that got me was, why are you sitting outside in the middle of winter? But maybe people in the UK like to sit outside and watch what's going on in their streets. I was just thinking how freezing cold. It was important she was out there so she could see what was going on. But the fact that it was interesting how it built up, because originally talked about doing her kinesthetics and she's fit, but having to squeeze past this box in the street was interesting. When the TARDIS disappeared and suddenly she was behind it and dropped the bags, that was a normal sort of reaction. But then as she saw more and more the TARDIS, dematerializing, materializing, and wasn't reacting, that was interesting. And then it says after the credit, well, not it wasn't after the credits, just before the credits, where you go into the TARDIS, the show ends. I'm the Doctor. You see coming back in May appear on the screen, and then you go back to her for her to break the fourth wall and talk about the TARDIS. That has to be a signal that something important is happening, but who knows what?
Mm.
I know.
Yep.
A couple of
Yep.
episodes, a couple of days ago, Shooting made some statements about wanting to meet the Rani and the Daleks, and it was interesting that I don't know why he had to be fed that, because I'd assume he wouldn't know who the Rani is, because not non-fans don't really know who the Rani is, I wouldn't think, and I don't think he's a fan of the show. My understanding is he's not particularly a fan of Doctor Who, and so the fact that he knew who the Rani was means they fed it to him. Now that could just be Russell causing problems, because Russell likes to stir things up and amuse people by throwing things in, like John Nathan Turner did. But it was interesting that Susie would mention the Rani particularly. But that being said, if the Rani came back, she'd probably come back as a man anyhow. Who knows what would happen when they reintroduced the Rani? Anything else you want to mention about Mrs. Flood or any of the other cast members?
No, not really. That was the main cast, wasn't it? There wasn't anyone else really that had a major role,
No, there was,
apart from the priest that walked out the door, but that wasn't a major role.
and there was a neighbor. There was a neighbor as well who she spoke to briefly, but didn't have any roles particularly. It was interesting, of course, a lot of the show was based on coincidence and luck and things. And I was sort of trying to look through what other coincidences there are in the show. So some of the ones that we saw or heard of was the fact that, I'm not sure you noticed, her door was blue like the TARDIS, her front door, which is also like the pond front door. He was wearing a ruby on his necklace for the episode. So I'm not sure it's before he meets her, but certainly before he learns her name, he's wearing a ruby, which I thought was an interesting little throwing thing in there. The fact that newborn's born on Christmas Eve. It's a Sunday when he meets Ruby Sunday. Lulu Bell's birthday and Ruby's the same day. The Doctor being adopted as well, also abandoned, doesn't know his parents. So they were deliberately throwing in lots and lots of coincidences, and there must be more I haven't seen. So if you've seen more, throw them in the comments, because I think that they've deliberately had lots of visual ones. As I said, the blue TARDIS door for her front door and him wearing the ruby were two that I sort of picked up along the way. Well, actually, my kids picked them up, I should be honest. My kids thought, oh, look, he's wearing a ruby. Um, so yes, if there's any other things that come up there, I'd love to know. I think we mentioned Mavity got mentioned already.
It did.
And can I say, I was listening to a Big Finish story last week that had Mavity in it. So the new Eighth Doctor story with Charlie and um, oh, lady, what's her name? Sorry,
Audacity.
Ah, Audacity. In one of those stories, they talk about Mavity, a Mavity well. So I don't know whether Big Finish was given
Oh,
the thumbs up
how interesting.
beforehand. But it threw me totally listening to the story, and suddenly they were talking about a Mavity well, and I went, went, good grief. Yeah. So if you're listening to Big Finish, the other Big Finish I mentioned I should just make too is Anita Dobson, who's playing Mrs. Flood, was also in the Big Finish story. Is it Blood of the Daleks? Yeah, Blood of the Daleks. So one of the the first Lucy Miller story.
The
Anita
first Lucy
Dobson's
Miller story. Yep.
the very first Lucy Miller story, which is a double episode. When they introduced Lucy Miller, Anita Dobson was in the cast, and of course, this is the first one going on BBC Seven at the time. I'm sure BBC Seven still exists. I don't think it does. But when Big Finish were doing productions for radio, um, and they were looking for good cast members, and Anita Dobson was one of the people they pulled in for guest cast because she was a good name to have in their first episode. Do you want to give us? I've got one negative I want to talk about in terms of one thing I was slightly disappointed about. But is there anything else you want to share, or in terms of your negatives, Dwayne? Before I share my negative.
I I, th I think the big one for me is probably just doubling down on the timeless children thing. It's such a universally disliked idea. Um, it's it it really turns me off that although the adoption thing is sort of playing into it because that was Chris Chibnall's idea in the first place, but it's something that just destroys the history of Doctor Who for me, which leaves a really bad taste in my mouth that they want to double down on it now. And just because it's Russell T doesn't mean that you have to just get spoon-fed everything and love it. And I don't. So that's probably my biggest negative about it.
Yeah, I think Russell is caringly not trying to damage the reputation of those who've gone before him. But I must admit, I would rather just retcon that whole era and pretend it hasn't a lot of it didn't exist, and especially some of the stuff that I don't think was well done or well thought through. And it even felt to me like Chris had forgotten it himself after an episode or two of dealing with it. And so it is a bit of a shame trying to be brought back. I suspect Russell may be trying to fix what he perceives wasn't well done. But yeah, I must have been. I'd prefer to be left over. Um, the negative I'm going to talk about in terms of is similar to that. Is in terms of we had a really positive view of fostering, which I thought was really lovely. The fact that foster mum, 33 children through the foster system, and the doctor makes the comment about the fact that you have one of the biggest families in the world. That what a positive thing it was in terms of you've gone through this system, you've not only survived it, you've thrived through it. Because I mean, Ruby's a lovely person. She's caring. She's got strong relationships with. She's in a band. She's learned music. Everything about Ruby is positive and showing that you've survived this and not only survived, you've thrived through the system. And she talks about all these other people who have been part of her life, part of her mother's life. They're still in contact. This huge family. And then the doctor says he has no one, that he hasn't got a family. He's alone. And to me, that was really sad considering we've just had 15 years of the doctor making more than that, making family. And in fact, the previous episode, when the doctor's about to regenerate, he has Donna say, I don't care what you do to me, I'm going to hold his hand. And you've got Mel there from 30 years ago saying, I'm going to hold my hand too. The doctor isn't alone. He has a huge foster family. The 14th Doctor is with another foster family doing time now and healing himself because of these relationships that he has. And so to me, it was just bizarre that the doctor would try and say, I'm all alone. I don't know what it is to have a family. Thinking, what's she talking about? You've got this amazing extended family, all these people all over the universe who love you and care for you and who will die for you and who will stand by you through anything. So that to me just didn't ring true. I don't know why it was put in. But to me, it was a really clunky line, and it was undoing so much good in terms of the whole positives of fostering and your family are the people who care about you, love you, and who you accept. It's not just blood. And I think on Christmas Day, that's the message you need to hear sometimes because a lot of people can be alone. They are removed from family, and here is the fact that actually no, the Doctor has this family, and the previous episode it ended with him sitting around the table with family. So yeah, do you see what I'm saying? Does that make sense to you?
I see exactly what you're saying. It does put a bit of a dark cloud over the confidence that was the 15th Doctor's character right at the start, even in the giggle, which I didn't feel as much in this episode. But you're right, there is a black cloud. Perhaps it's leading up to the fact that the Master could be coming back, and that is the other Time Lord that's around that he's very close to. Because you remember we had the 10th Doctor and the Master have that scene where he died in his arms, and maybe this could be, the Master coming back. And there could be some great reunion episode coming back between the two of them. I don't know. But, if we're talking Time Lords, there's another Time Lord that's the seed has been planted for his return, put it that way.
Yeah. Is this the perfect jumping on episode for new fans? What do you think? Or or is this just another standard Doctor Who episode?
I, I don't think so because I found myself thinking, comparing this to the Ninth Doctor's first episode.
Yeah.
So that built up a lot of questions about who is he? Who is this person? And it created that mystery of the title of the show, Doctor Who. Whereas this, we had the Doctor coming out saying, "I'm this person, I do this and I do that, and I'm just wonderful." Um, there was there was no there was a veil of mystery behind the Ninth Doctor that I don't think is there in Ncuti's Doctor. So I don't think it's the perfect jumping on point, but at the same time, it's very different to what we've had before as well in many ways. So in some respects, it could be a good jumping on point for a new audience. If they want to bring in a new audience, that could be what does it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I agree. I don't think it's a brilliant jumping on episode. I think you got a new Doctor, you got a new companion, which kind of feels like it is a good point. But when you look at what's been done in the past, Rose had a lot to do because it was 16 years without seeing Doctor Who. And so Russell with Rose was very much reintroducing everything and every element. I think the 11th Hour does an amazing job as a jumping on point in terms of a new Doctor, new companions, and showing things through the companions' eyes. For me, part of the issue, I guess, is in terms of is this a jumping on episode? I think lots of new people will come to it. I think Ncuti is very popular, and Millie is also very popular because of her time in Coronation Street. So both of them, I think, will be bringing a new fan base to the show. But it seemed to me like it was missing lots of key elements to help people understand the show. But then I'm also thinking we're in Australia, and I actually think Doctor Who in the UK is a lot more common and known about. And so there'd be, I don't know, the majority of people in Australia wouldn't know who Doctor Who was, wouldn't know he's a time traveler, wouldn't know the TARDIS was bigger than the inside and outside. They wouldn't know that as much as we do talk about the TARDIS being bigger, it is dropping into language more and more in Australia. It's not part of our bread and butter, I don't think. But in the UK, my understanding is, and once again, UK listeners let us know, that everyone has an understanding of who the Doctor is, who the TARDIS is, who the Daleks are. And so maybe they just didn't feel like they needed to do a lot of those basics that they did do with Rose, 11th Hour, even Deep Breath. Maybe they just didn't feel they needed to do that because people's understanding of who the Doctor was already set. And also because I guess Ncuti appeared in the previous episode, which once again, I've been thinking about it. Was that actually a good idea without all the publicity? Did they actually miss out on all the Ncuti fans? Maybe because they can go back and watch it now, can't they? Did they actually miss out on
Yeah.
the Ncuti fans watching that episode because it wasn't publicized he was going to be in it? So were people going to watch just for the last minute or two, which is what usually happens? Whereas would they have got more of an audience had they known it was 15 minutes or 20 minutes at the end? So yeah, it's those interesting things. But yeah, I guess it's fine for people to join now. it didn't quite have all the elements I think you would probably want to put in, but it was nevertheless pretty standard fun episode of Doctor Who. It's actually because the Christmas episode only the second time a new Doctor's been introduced in a Christmas episode. And as you said, I'm not always sure it's the best place to introduce a new Doctor, just because of the sort of audience you're trying to reach and the sort of tone a Christmas episode has to have. Though as I said, usually they kill people off, and they have it this time. Any other concluding comments you want to make, Dwayne? What about the trailer for next time? Anything you want to say about next time?
Yeah, the trailer was something I was going to mention. Very fast pace. You got to watch it about 20 times
Yep.
and pause it.
Yep.
All those different things. There was a reference to Mel. You saw the back of Mel's head, so I was very excited to see Mel, of course, because
And
we know this is a
we see
shorter season.
Rose,
So
and we see the unit base. So we saw Mel, Rose, and the unit base. So we see they're all in it, which we kind of knew anyway. Yep. Other
a couple of
things that
scary
stood out?
looking monsters. One of them
Yes.
maybe is because Mel's there. I thought that looks like a Vervoid opening up. One of those monsters. So
Was that on
maybe
Earth?
it's a Vervoid.
Where was that? Where was that set?
It looked like it was on Earth. Yeah,
Right. Okay.
it
I
looked
didn't
like
see
it was
that.
on Earth. Yeah.
I'm gonna go back and look at that now and see if I think it could be a Vervoid, which they would have to change the costume a bit compared to what they did last time. But I can see, yeah. Now you say it, you could.
I think they might, Philip.
It did look quite plant-like. The other thing that stood out to me was the Beatles. We actually saw the Beatles.
Oh yes.
So
Yep.
yeah, I knew they were going
Very,
to
very quickly.
96. I know, and I knew they were going to 96. I knew they were going to go to Abbey Road. I wasn't expecting to actually see the Beatles though, and to me, once again, I haven't gone step by step through it, but I'm sure it's Paul McCartney's face. So it looks like they've done some pretty clever engineering on the faces of the actors to actually put. So it may only be that short scene we see them. I don't know. So it certainly raises more
Yep.
questions than the answers, and looks interesting. It wasn't all bangs, explosions, which is what often the trailers are. You usually see lots and lots of monsters. We didn't see a lot of that. But it's certainly whet the appetite. But it's just depressing. It's not till May. We've got to wait 5 months before the season starts.
Yep. And that's if you wanted a final comment from me about the episode, it hasn't got me gagging to get to May. I'm sort of I'm not the biggest fan of it. I don't hate it by any means. There's plenty of positive things to talk about in it. Certainly don't hate it, but it's kind of left me, just going, oh well, let's just get on with life. And I was at a lighthouse today, and I came back and just threw on Horror of Fang Rock, and I went, wow, they just don't make quality Doctor Who like that anymore. So I've still got all that to enjoy until May.
Yeah. I still wonder how much does the nostalgia of watching an episode like the Horror from Rock affect our viewing compared to the fact that we don't have nostalgia about watching new episodes now? I do wonder how much that influences, because I know there's a joy I just get from putting the DVD in the player, knowing I'm about to watch. I've just watched the whole 7th season with John Pertwee, and just the joy of that theme starting
I
up
full well remember the feeling I had when I watched Horror Fang Rock for the very first
first
time.
time and being
I
excited.
just don't get that anymore. And like I said, it could just be me becoming an old man,
Yeah.
old and jaded. I want that feeling again. I'm not getting it. So, you know, boo-hoo to
Yep.
me.
Yeah. Well, as me, this is the first time. The last 4 specials is the first time I've really been enjoying Doctor Who for years and just having fun. It's not the plots aren't clever. The plots aren't complicated. There's very little plot there. Great characters, bit of a message. You can't plumb the depths of you can with some other stuff. But I'm just having fun. I'm just enjoying it. And so at the moment, I'm happy. And we'll see when he actually puts a series together of 8 episodes, where it goes, where it builds. When you move away from the special format, I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to come next. Well, listen, thank you so
Very
much
good.
for your time tonight. It's been good chatting with you. And yeah, I love talking and hearing your input. And yeah, it's been great tonight. Thank you so much.
No worries, Philip.
And thank you everyone for listening to us as well. We will see whether we'll be back doing any more of these in a few months' time or not. But certainly we appreciate your company. Thank you for joining us. If you haven't had a chance to stick a review on Apple. We would love a 5-star review. And also, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, we'd really love you to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to that. There's some amazing episodes of some great, all sorts of interviews and reviews of Big Finish and other audios and other actors and directors and writers. And you can hear us twaddle on about all sorts of stuff there as well. So, yeah, come and
And there's no
subscribe.
reason we can't get together from time to time and talk about classic episodes like Horror of Fang Rock at
Yeah,
some stage.
exactly. Yeah, maybe we should do a bit of that too, and some of the joys that brings to us as well. We are going to have
Yep.
a little couple of weeks off if you listen to the main program. We'll be coming back with a very exciting special interview with Wendy Padbury when we kick off in a couple of weeks' time. And for those in Australia, don't forget Wendy Padbury is coming out in February, in about 45 days in Sydney. So get your tickets and come along, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in person. So, Dwayne, thank you for your time. And thank you, everybody
Thank you for
else.
yours, Philip.
Bye, everyone.